At least for me, I'm good to get started whenever everyone else is.
Yeah, we're ready. I don't know if Berkeley's back yet.
Sorry, I literally just got back. Give me just 1 second.
Oh, what topic was chosen for this round, by the way?
Are we unmuted? We chose rare earth elements.
Cool, thanks.
Okay, I'm ready.
Cool. In that case, is there anyone not ready? Sounds good. The plan, the United States federal government should substantially increase its investment in rare earth elements mining by investing $1 billion into agro mining and solvency. One plan passes through normal means. The money goes through the Pentagon RE grant system, which is the only existing program for the distribution of funds for RE mining. B's, where this is a weird topical increase because we're using an existing mechanism. C's is the only topical form of only plants can directly mine REs. Other operations can only mine rare earth minerals. Two is that agro mining is the process of using plants to mine minerals from the soil. Fast growing plants or fungi that naturally accumulate high levels of certain rare earth minerals like a fern, a Dicynopterus linearis, which can pull huge amounts of lanthanum from the ground. There are plant in areas with a large RE deposit. The elements in the plants are then processed by incineration or by leaching, in which the plant is submerged in an aqueous solution that allows the metals to seep out of it. Three's investment solves the reason agro mining hasn't been implemented is only because lack of funding, not lack of efficacy or efficiency. Agro mining has been used in small scale operations in the 90s with great success. One study found that agro mining could extract more than 85% of all element deposits in an area without ever breaking ground. The plant is substantial. Total value of imports the U.S. spent on REs in 2020 was $170 million. Towards agro mining is a sustainable, poses exponential fewer environmental hazards by using hyperaccumulator plants. The process bypasses the need to chemically separate the pure ore from surrounding materials. Instead, pure ore is available once plants are incinerated. B is no need to open a physical mine to retrieve any form of deposit, which preserves local ecosystems. Hyperaccumulating plants can produce high yields of rare earth elements with a soil concentration of the mineral that is now as low as 0.1%. C's plants can become customized to diverse climates. There are over 4,450 species that are hyperaccumulators of cerium and yttrium alone that thrive in a variety of climates. These agro mining does not replace food crops or disrupt agricultural production in Greece. For example, hyperaccumulators can be grown alongside olive trees, and they increase crop yields by improving soil quality. Most hyperaccumulator plants are extremely nutrient efficient, so they don't require fertilizers. It can also rehabilitate where established mines have already disrupted the environment. A current mining system employs strip mining that decimates ecosystems and leaves the soil and landscape barren. Agro mining provides initial vegetative stabilization with the added advantage of a longer-term income stream. In New Caledonia, for example, co-planting of a hyperspecies with a nitrogen fixing plant species such as Fabaceae, like the scientific name, I have no clue how to say it, has been conceived as a viable option for getting rehabilitation starting on mine spoils. 5 is according to the USGS, there are signed significant deposits of REs in 14 states, but not all use agro mining. Our affirmative would work at 2 sites in Florida and 2 sites in California. These are the only locations where the conditions are fertile enough for agro mining plants to grow right now. Advantage 1 is uniqueness. One current mining techniques are used hazardous chemicals like blue water supplies in the environment. Mining has severely damaged surface vegetation, causing soil erosion, pollution, acidification, reduce or even eliminated food crop output. Bees mining plants typically produce wastewater with concentration of radioactive residues. There are two primary methods for mining. Both release toxic chemicals. First is going to be removing topsoil and creating a leaching pond where chemicals are added to the extracted earth and to separate materials. These are full of toxic chemicals that leak into groundwater. Bees. The second method of drilling is drilling using pipes and hose pumps and pumping chemicals into the earth. Threes, mines and ores are deposits locally located disproportionately on wait, you don't need that. Okay. 4, 3 is the ecosystems already fragile from the effects of climate change. Climate change interacts with other human structures such as development to add more stress on ecosystems.
The human body and how it can be morphed, which means it's necessarily key. The third argument is tantalum is key to electronic equipment such as capacitors, resistors, making tellurium also key to developing memory devices, making both of these elements integral to the specific technology. The Z point is the impacts. The first argument is that environmental destruction necessarily causes extinction. The A point is that necessarily without decreases significantly the total number of CO2 in the atmosphere, it causes rampant ocean acidification, which kills off ocean fisheries, which the majority of the population rely on for sustenance. It causes resource wars that eventually cause extinction. The B point also is generally just that as things get hotter and hotter, it causes massive wildfires in the Amazon, which is a huge carbon buffer for the entire Earth, which eventually makes all life untenable as things just get hotter and hotter and cause feedback loops that only make things worse. The C point is that you should prefer extinction as a prior question. It is literally inevitable in the status quo, which means that it comes which means that maintaining the human rights is always going to be a prior question. The last argument is that necessarily that this is the key internal to resolving for structural violence. The point A is that the move towards the removal of the corporeal body and introduction of the cyborg vision allows us to resolve for things like identity conflicts that cause massive divides in the status quo, because it allows us to remove the eradication of difference through transhumanistic technology. Underview. The role of the battle is to endorse the fiat policy option that produces the best material conditions. Once again, the role of the battle is to endorse the fiat policy option that produces the best material conditions. The first argument is fiat. The ace of points that fiat is a test of hypothetical advocacy of answer speech acts. The base of points that fiat being illusory as matter, mirages, dreams, and hallucinations are all illusory, but they can still motivate action and create affective responses. The second argument is that fiat is good. The ace of points that fiat allows the oppressed to make demands upon the state independent of the state and conceive of a world where their demands are met. The base points that is critical to resolving harms. The question of it ought not be how great a utopia would be, but rather what material changes we can do to move towards that utopia. The ace of points that action spec is key. Fiat intrinsically requires the specification of who will take what action. Absent identification of those two elements, it's impossible to predict outcomes, which means you vote an AFON presumption. The third argument is that policymaking is good. The ace point that policymaking is both particular and structural. It's not reform or revolution, it's reform and revolution, which justifies the perm as a key starting point. The base point also is that it's not static. There are organizations of power, which means it's only a question of what that power is used for. And we're open to flex.
Charged endorsed by the affirmative made them genocidal agent. B, C, a neuroplasticity supercharge all of our impacts. If you conclude that learning about potential plans to stop genocides is good, you vote for the affirmative. Number 2. The resolution poses the question of whether the United Nations should amend the conventional alternatives to state violence. Means that there's a fascist internal impact to any rejection of the affirmative, and Trump and Brexit make this uniquely key. Lack of engagement breeds material violence and fascist takeover. We also say is C, obsession with magnitude reflects a privileged conception of security that locks in the status quo. The 1% risk of any impact is methodological blackmail that prevents you from stopping to very real genocide. This creates a perpetual divide between us and the enemy that means constantly.
I'm going to do 3 off, and then I'm going to put the framework on top, and then the rest of the case is top down.
Because that's an official statement. They consider the Tigray individuals to be impure.
Yeah, they literally say that they're impure and that they are not worthy of any type of recognition. Why would you give a back channel to someone that you feel is subhuman or non-human?
Believe the round of peace for competing interpretations, because competing interpretations is key to prevent judgment intervention. This operator, because we know that we need to understand the parameters of the PMC before we're able to have the rest of the debate. The first is that UN credibility. The first argument is that UN international credibility is low. The errors as of December 2020, about a quarter of countries haven't paid their dues to be unpaid dues in 2020, resulting in a budget shortfall of $5.1 billion. This hampered the UN's ability to conduct operations.
Children attempts to paper over the inherent gap in signification, generating structural violence against current employee points. The fantasy of non-lacking child is impossible for the heteronormative society to refuse the acknowledging of the possibility of such equality queerness as a barrier to realization of fantasies such as the queer body is constructed and joining expensive. The child will be born. So politics of futurity valorizes reproductive heterogeneous sex subordinated gay sex and nothing more than meaningless acrobatics. The C point is a refusal of the queerness to occupy single stable category perceived as a threat to stability. The D point is look to the discourse on A's and
DA is going to be a U.S. lashback DA. Look to how in every single movement, when white people show up and start destroying things, the indigenous people or the people of color are the ones who get all of the lashback from the state, and massive amounts of violence are done against them. Things like Guantanamo Bay, where we just abduct people and commit massive amounts of violence against them and strip them of their autonomy and dehumanization, means that the affirmative not only can never solve for its own impacts and does nothing, but is an actually harmful way to think about the world and imagine fiat being carried out. Second, we're going to say that they have no solvency. Just because you destroy some land underneath some buildings,
move to another building.
They just either move to another building, and also you're still destroying indigenous land. There could be people buried under those buildings. You don't know the sanctity of the ground they were built on. You are just destroying indigenous land. The difference between like using a symbol to imagine a world is creating a new symbol versus just doing the action is just doing the action.
There are only 2 sites in the U.S. That's not going to solve water famine in lower income nations.
States, you're going to say that means you meet our inter, but it's not a question of what your functionally does. It's a question of the way that you define rare earth elements. In Flex, you said that you defined it as the ones that are defined as such by the periodic table. Even if you coincidentally meet our interp, it's a question of what the starting point is.
Okay. Then we're gonna go CPDA. All right. Start with the first interpretation. The articulation here is going to be we say that we are, like, our definition of REs is necessarily going to be things that are hard to find, are fractionally difficult to find in the Earth surface. We say that REs are literally are fractionally uncommon or hard to find in the United States, which is probably why there's a shortage right now. They say that it doesn't matter because there's different starting point definitions. No, we say the interpretation is absolutely a question.
Humanism because the black body is an object by which you base your understanding of human and non-human. Two implications: one, they're all selves because it misdiagnoses the base of humanism, which undermines the other, who is otherized. Second, the black body is unaccounted for throughout their method because black futurity is key to gratuitous violence, meaning that they recreate anti-black violence, and that's the reason to reject on face. And the third point here is that we say we're wrong if you want, but Lacan is a huge portion of your literature.
Plants. We say it's like toxic if you just like no, we say it's not toxic to all plants, probably just to some. But the second articulation is going to be that the plants necessarily refine it, i.e., the plant the plant like pulls out the REE. It's a purification process. Yeah, it's a mining and purification process, which probably means that we resolve back for this. They say which probably means that we resolve back for this. Anyways, this is defense at best. We're not just talking about nickel. We literally give you 3 examples of like yttrium and other shit. Go down to their no solve. They say we no solve because we can't do 4 sites, but they would say articulation of these 4 sites are necessarily where the vast majority of REs are, specifically in the California areas that are going to be the main site right now, which means that these are where the wastewater is being generated.
Don't see anymore. You can extend across like chaos stuff and solve, and that isn't our method. I'll get more on the method part of the debate. We aren't going for chaos anymore, so a lot of their argumentation is no longer going to work. They say the next argument they have on the framework here is about you use the United States and how the U.S. already stripped the land of its value in the past. This is really somebody's not going to work at the point in which the D.C., the District of Columbia, which is not the USFG, owns the land. And second, saying that the value is already gone from the land is probably super offensive against indigenous people who do value that land as it is right now, and that it still does exist as their land. Saying the value has already been stripped is a form of like reification of settler colonial thing to begin with. Go to the links. Yeah, go to the links. You can extend across this route as a gosh darn simulation, and that this denatures and corrupts debate into an experience where normal speech acts become a mockery of themselves. I.e., the 1AC is a mockery of decoloniality instead of an actual act of resistance. It's just another way for the world of propaganda to interpolate us as actors. This round is simulation because we've imagined it before and just mindlessly repeating pre-written scripts. We've debated y'all on this sort of thing, specific on Rees 3 times. All of you.
The third articulation is going to be that the defense industry is necessarily going to get better because they have more REs, but the turn here is going to be consumer confidence. We say that right now the status quo inflation is necessarily being driven by
Cool. I'm bad at flowing. You said that the impact of the UN credibility dissad was inevitable, right?
I said the
forces to have to engage with it, so fairness comes first. Second inter. You have undercovered the fairness offense. Extend the interpretation. Proper mining means the extraction of minerals from the Earth's surface via mines. The violation contextualizes the the violations that you extract via plants. So the argument is that plants are distinct from mines. You have a weed meat that says that plants are functionally mines, but a couple of responses. Number one is that, remember, the violation contextualizes the interpretation. The reason why is that the plants we contextualize via the violation that plants and mines are distinct, i.e. all of these standards level offenses reasons why plants are still unfair, even if it actually meets a definition of mine. Prefer the spirit of the interpretation, because otherwise you get frivolous weed meats that don't respond to the substance of the standards level offense that we are reading. Second is that the standards are still dissets to your weed meat, because even if your weed meat is
key to power projection and key to the understanding of the United States as a global hegemon, which indicates there is absolutely linked. This decreases the perceptions. This you might go for the articulation that the United States pulls out, which resolves any form of hegemony in the world. The United States hegemony is necessarily predicated on perception, i.e. how NATO necessarily views the United States as the link articulation that is going to be killer on the affirmative. You've conceded the credibility is the key internally to the United States hegemony. I'll do some work here. The first is going to be power projection is necessarily predicated on the ability to work with allies. Turkey houses B-61 gravity bombs within its borders, which indicates the ability for the United States to communicate, and the ability for the United States to power project through other countries indicates the only method the United States to have to be able to be a global hegemon is the
it's non-unique, because our definition means that this Yeah, our definition means this. I already did that work. Your only other counter standard is forward thinking is good because it solves bad for climate change. But this isn't fairness offense. It's a reason why it's good to think in the future. But two, our ground standard is a disadd to this because forward thinking arguments are not contestable in the first place because we can't read dissads to them because they've never been tested in the real world, which means that it's unfair even if it's good for solving climate change in the abstract. We'll still go for climate change defense on the app that proves the standard doesn't matter in the first place. Also, fairness comes before climate change because it's used the evaluation of how we answer the climate change in the first place. Go to the voters. I have reasonability float on the first interp, so I'm going to do some of that work now. Extend fairness. It skews evaluation of the round. Arguments are seen as true or false based on the flow, but if the round is unfair, the flow is not a good indicator of who is the better debater. So you have to prefer fairness over education because it skews the evaluation of the round. Second reason why fairness comes first is because it controls the way that education is utilized in the debate space, i.e. the reason why we see certain arguments as fair or as educational or uneducational is because of the fairness in the round, and our ability to gain education out of the round is constrained by whether the round is fair or not. So fairness definitely comes first. Also, we prefer competing interps over reasonability. It leads to judge intervention. Forcing the judge to choose between one of two interps minimizes judges' intervention on what counts as a reasonable bright line in
CP, and then the mining T-sheet, and then the solvency page of the app. Get my other papers out of there. Alrighty. If we're all good, beginning now, you're going to vote. You're clearly going to vote for T because we are winning fairness over education offense, and there's no they are not winning any terminal defense on our page. But let's start with this CP. They're going to try and get up and go for this IVI.
Forms of genocide, which means that we don't even have to win impact money to win this round, but also cause extinction, which is the biggest impact in this round, which means you are always voting neg. Let's go to the interview. This is where the collapse is going to be because this was the majority of their PMC. They're going to go for this articulation that they're a particularism, which means that even though there's specific bad things that happen, it doesn't work. The one we need is going to shield this because you consider you're not garnering any offense extra topically, but more importantly, you are particularly bad, particularly because the case turn is on fire in a world where you increase genocide not only via Seaburns but also within Nagorno-Karabakh because of the increase of conventional weapon usage. You're always going to be much worse. This indicates it's never going to.
Also, they're like not competitive because they can both be true at the same time. Like we both have the definitions happen at the same time, which means they're not competitive.
Is how we can destroy that. Onto the perm. Extend across the perm, like is perm do both. Their only argument in the block is about how we can't do both revolution and also because we utilize revolutionary fiat because our ethos is incoherent. There's absolutely no warrant as to how our ethos is incoherent. They say we have to smash they have to smash the symbols of the empire. We say that the affirmative and its use of revolutionary fiat is a form of smashing a literal symbol of the empire, which is the Capitol Hill, which means that our ethos is definitely consistent. This is the literal
necessarily proving the abuse, but you have made your own link and unique arguments that specifically use REMs in conjunction with REEs, the implication being that obviously these things are intrinsically intertwined, and the fact that you had a dissent that specifically mentioned REMs probably indicates that this
trick that they have in their underview, it's not going to work because they're going to cause extinction in two different ways, which means that you're always going to be
good round, y'all.
20, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. Moreover, they say conventional war uniquely worse in the Tigray and Ethiopian conflict, but they can necessarily consider organizational warrants about how specifically that the Ethiopian government is necessarily only able to cause a genocide and start a war because of these drones, because it allows them to bypass any coordination problems because the Ethiopian government is using local organization led by local chieftains. This is the warrants coming out of the PMC necessarily means that no conventional war is going to happen because the Ethiopian government cannot win that war because they do not have the capabilities absent an extinction, which means that we're winning a link turn about how those are specifically going to be resolving in the status quo, which means that the only impacts in today's debate are necessarily that. Moreover, they say that research strategies were not able to specifically weigh, but we don't need to win our research strategies necessarily good because we're winning on a probability frame that you're always going to evaluate. Moreover, we're winning on magnitude too because they don't have an argument because they double turn themselves on the disadvantage. Moreover, they say that mass genocide is occurring now and that Nuts theory is able to resolve, but we've given you way more warrants on this question. So we're winning an impact turn to their impact framing. So it's gonna be super simple.
Even if net story is going to resolve, since they've conceded that extinction is inevitable under the ISIS.
Since they've conceded that extinction by a great power war is inevitable under the ISIS disadvantage that we're winning a link turn there, that means that this is a non-impact because it happens both in the status quo and in the world of the affirmative. Not reading a counterplan was the worst decision the LOC necessarily made. So let's go to the disadvantage. Number one, we're winning a terminal defense on the uniqueness question about how U.S. credibility is low right now because of Ukraine. They're not able to stop that genocide. That is predictive. Moreover,